Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to day number 4 of webinar week number 4, here with Beyond Pulse in our player and coach education series. Absolutely delighted today to be turning the focus back towards the direction of players, and specifically focusing on the importance of individual work. Obviously, we have Mr. Mark Wilson in the hot seat with me, and our special guest today, Mr. Beastmode Soccer himself, David Copeland-Smith. So, David, firstly, thank you ever so much for sharing your time with us today. Obviously, very, very excited to have you here, and really looking forward to being able to delve into the insight, the education, and the experience that you have working with some of the game's biggest personalities, but more specifically a lifetime in this realm of the game, where we're obviously going to talk a lot about what the players on the line now and listening in the future can do to really elevate themselves from a technical perspective, with that emphasis on at-home individual work. So if you could, mate, for the benefit of people who may be less familiar with you here or across the pond, please provide a little background into your story to this point, and then me and Willow will jump in with some questions.
Yeah, so first, thanks for having me. Thank you for everyone being on. So my name is David Copeland-Smith. I started a company called Beastmode Soccer in 2011, and all that did really was make official what I've been doing for years. Right, I moved to the States in 2003, to California in 2005, and I started just training individuals. I coached teams in Florida, and that experience taught me that sometimes when teams get really good, parents get even crazier, and it kind of ruined the coaching experience. So I decided when I moved to Cali to focus on the individual technical building part of it, and I had to get a job. So I got a job in a high school, just again coaching, to get some money together, and I started to train the girls at that school. And then one of them ended up doing really well. She couldn't stand me at the time, which is a funny story. A girl called Ali Riley, who ended up going to Stanford, and she's the one who actually forced me into making it all official, because she went pro. The girl's a rock star. She played in 4 World Cups, 4 Olympics. Like, she's ridiculous. But she came back summer once, and she's like, you know what you need to do? I'm like, what? She's like, you need to grow up. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I'm Peter Pan, bro. And she guilted me, and it started to make me think. Because at the time, I was living in a house on Mulholland Drive in Beverly Hills, which is like right on top of a hill. On one side you have Beverly Hills, and the other side you have a valley. It had a soccer field in the house. That was our yard, was a turfed, like 6v6 field. A pop star owned the house. Like, we'd get Premier League players coming up all the time. Like, it was mad. And then she told me how to grow up. And because she was a Stanford kid, I kind of listened. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I started a company called thesoccerguru.com. I think I still got that .com. I'm not sure. I'm a bit of a .com collector. So made a website, everything. Riley wasn't really keen on the name. And then we're doing a session up at the field, and she hit a shot into the top corner, and she just looked at me and said, that was beast mode. I was like, oh, these kids and their sayings. Like 4 o'clock in the morning, in their house, I'm like, I wonder if I can get like Beastmode Soccer, and I got it. So I asked all my friends what they thought, and they all hated it. I asked the players, and the players loved it. So I was like, okay, I'll go with the players. And I started to basically, from that point, really focus on building players on an individual format. And yeah, it's gone on from them. I don't want to like answer all your questions in one answer, so I'm going to stop talking.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, no, David, thank you. It's look, it is an incredible journey, and for the people that are a little less familiar with you, obviously where it's led you to, and the players it's led you to work with, and the success that you've been able to have is really for me at least, it's kind of a fairy tale for people like us who came from across the pond a long time ago, and the career that you've obviously built for yourself, and the brand of Beast Mode, and the impact that you've had on obviously players young and old is very impressive. So as we said, for the benefit of the people a little less familiar with David, I think you can tell from that we're going to be in for a treat. David, I've started every conversation over the last few weeks with trying to give a shout out, and obviously what is quite a difficult time worldwide right now, to sources of inspiration, or sources of people who embody the type of mentality or character that the rest of the conversation is going to be centered around. And obviously yours is about a commitment to and dedication to individual train work and training, and developing a framework and a foundation for technical excellence. So my question to you, if you feel comfortable with sharing names, my question to you would be your all-time all-star list of a five-a-side team of your top trainers. So not necessarily the best players, but the people that you think embody the mentality of champions do more, which is obviously your one of your greatest sayings. So if you could make just a little shout out to acknowledge those guys as lessons for the people listening.
Okay, so five-a-side. Start with the goalkeeper. Listen there. What I love about Alyssa is she's the incredible opposite of the last long-term goalkeeper for the US, right? Like total opposite personality-wise, and tends to shy away from media and all that. But what Alyssa's work ethic is this: she will fly to LA for 2 months just to get pelted with soccer balls, right? So we'll be training, and Liz will come out in the morning for 2 hours, and I apologize to her all the time. I'm like, listen, I'm not a goalkeeper trainer. I wouldn't know where to start with goalkeepers. And she's like, no, this is what I need. And just, because no goalkeeper likes that, right? You're getting literally 200 shots every day, and then she'll go and train with other people as well on the same day. And that's the type of attitude that we love. And I was really happy for her in the World Cup. I wish she hadn't saved the penalty against England, but it is what it is. So Alyssa would be in goal. I think I'm going to go very attacking here. Very attacking.
I love it, mate.
Well, it's five-a-side, isn't it? You don't really need defenders.
I don't want to sit behind.
I'll put Jessie Fleming as like a holding sweeper 10. So Jessie, a lot of people might not even know who Jessie is. Jessie plays for Canada and UCLA, and she's just clean and technical wise. I started working with her a couple of years ago, and this is a good story. So Janine Becky introduced us, because Janine plays for Canada as well, and I've trained Janine for a long time. And whenever I get introduced to a player, it doesn't matter, if they're pro or whatever, say, hey, what do you need to work on? Because I'm not there. Usually it's 2-3 things. I swear, Jessie's text was like this long. And I'm looking through it, and I'm like, well, she doesn't need to work on that. She doesn't need to work on that. She doesn't, but in her head, she does. So with that, she's an interesting one, because the way she reads the game as well it's next level. So I'd want Jess on my team. She's got the potential to be top 5 player in the world. She's absolutely filth. When she turns it on, you just and even in training, she'll do some things, and I'm like, I don't like to gas people up, but I'm like, oh, okay, that was pretty decent.
Bit special.
Yeah, she is, and she's like me as well. She's weird. I think, in fact, all of these players, I'm going to tell you, we're all a bit weird, like off center. Like Jessie's studying engineering. Like that girl is hyper intelligent, and she's got the potential to be one of the best players in the world. So let's Jess.
It's a black man.
I'm going to go Rachel Daly on the right. Rach plays for England in the Houston Dash. Now with Rach, oh mate, that girl, just work ethic is out of this world. Like she was meant to be with us today, but she had work commitments for Houston Dash, which is it's unfortunate. But the good thing is I wouldn't be able to talk about her if she was on the line anyway, because we've got too much of a banterous relationship. But she first started to work with me her freshman year at college. She went to St. John's, and she came out to LA to play for the LA Strikers, which was being coached by the U17 women's team coach now, Tracy Kevins. And Tracy's, I genuinely think, the best developer of players in this country. Like she is absolutely meant that. I would do my sessions with the LA Strikers and I'll just sit and watch Tracy deliver. Like she's ridiculous. And I did it again. I was training Mal Pugh in Florida a couple of weeks ago in the 17s there, and just watching Tracy work is brilliant. So Tracy introduced me to Rach, and that was it. Like Rach was my shadow, basically. So she would just get to my house in the morning and spend all day with me. She wouldn't do every session. She'd help out in sessions. She'd jump into sessions, and we'd plan her development out long term, and she stuck to it. And she'd run for a wall for people. And she's got that little bit of meanness about her on the field. We've been. You're asking if we got banned from the futsal in LA? Yeah, we may have because of her. So, then on the left, Ali Long. Ali's another one, like work ethic wise. What I love about Ali is that she's had the door shut on her so many times, and so many people at a really high level, you get that door shut on you, it's shut, right? They've made their mind up. But what I love about Ali is that she didn't get that memo. She don't understand that. She's gonna keep knocking on the door, and if nobody answers, she's gonna go around the back door, and if no one answers, she's gonna try the side door, and if no one answers, she's just gonna break in. And that's what she did to get onto this last World Cup roster. Like, she got cut a couple of camps before, and she just put her head down and went for it. And so I'd want that on my team as well. And she's also got a bit of nastiness about her on the field. So we've got that on the left and the right. I'll have my 9. Well, it's not a 9 because it's 5-side, but I'll pick Alex up front. I've worked with Alex almost 10 years. So yeah, she bangs goals. And again, so many stories about how, like, the way she organises her time.
You're not inviting me.
And the way she organises her time just to get training. You can imagine how busy that woman was before the World Cup with like all media commitments and everything.
Right.
Yet did not let our training slip once. One day we had Instagram and ESPN out there filming, and what I love about her is that she gets the producers together. She's like, listen, this is my training session. There's no like choreography, like this is what we're doing. It's going to look amazing if you get me working properly. And I've always admired that about her. So, do you have subs or no?
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid you've got your 5. Although we've had 6s and we've had 10s and we've had all sorts. But I think your list the list of people that we could have picked might have rivaled any that we've had so far, with obviously the amount of success that's in it. The other thing though, David, is you know, what I love about what you've said, and I think, oh, guys, just again a little reminder, I think we're good, but just keep your microphones, please. Just shut off. The other thing is, and Rachel specifically, so you've referenced that Ali is super resilient, but Rach, I think, is an example of somebody who was she was a forward, right? And she broke goals records at St. John's, and now she's playing as a fullback when she broke into the national team, right? She kind of seized an opportunity to be prepared to do whatever it took to get a chance, and then to cling on to it and hold on to it. And obviously now she's far more established and playing higher up the field where people are more accustomed to. But that mentality, the mentality that you've just referenced with Alex, about being so determined to be the best all the time, right? The standards, like those things. There's no secret in these guys being on your list, right?
No, like, and with Rach as well, like what I'll say like about her mentality with England, especially because at Houston she's a forward, and it takes a very, very strong mentality from a player to be able to switch from the mindset of a 9 to the mindset of a right back or a left back. And you know, Phil Neville has made it clear that he sees her as a utility player, and to me that's a huge compliment. You know, sometimes it might work against you because you're not right. You're our go-to player there, but you are the go-to player for multiple positions. So, you know, just the mental strength that it takes for her to do that. And you know, when you're playing right back, the player that you're replacing is Lucy Bronze, who's the best right back in the world, right? And for Rach to go in and do that seamlessly was great. You know, in England US semi-final, you know, everyone kept asking, like, you know, what do you want the score to be? And you know, I've lived in America since 2003. I've got an American passport. I've trained 13 of them American girls. But all the Americans thought I wanted England to win, and all the English thought I wanted the Americans to win. But all I wanted was my players, because I want to be selfish here, I wanted my players to perform. And in that game, they did. Like Rach, she performed. I would love to see her in a World Cup final, you know, but she made an impact in that game, and so that was, sure. I was happy.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a great story, and again, I want to reference it. I always try to loop it back for the benefit of the people that are listening. Sometimes we've used this analogy before. You see the tip of the iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg in the story that David's telling is obviously a World Cup semi-final with friends on the field, people that David has worked with, teammates competing against each other, and the limelight that gets shone on those events. But the hours and hours and hours of dedication and sacrifice and commitment that goes into that, I think often gets overlooked. And obviously hearing it, players especially hearing it from somebody like David, who gets to see it firsthand, and can tell you why those players have earned the right to be successful. I think that's super important. So David, thank you for that. Obviously what I do want to kind of get into a little bit as well. So Beast Mode is heavily centered around technical execution and finding the marginal gains, the extra 1 or 2% from your technical comfort. And we spoke before we hit record about players coming out of this enforced hiatus feeling more confident and comfortable in their abilities based on the work that they've put in. I'd like to ask, where did the fascination with this side of the game come from for you? What were the major influences, and how has it obviously led to where you are today?
Yeah, I think I started to do this when I was in Florida, when I lived there. And what I loved was I saw quicker results, right? So with players that I work with on an individual basis, I saw the results translate to games a lot quicker. And I think that is when I knew that that was my calling, right? Because team coaching, it just, I don't know, I just stopped enjoying it, right? But I wanted to stay in football. And then when I moved, I thought it was the perfect time to really go into it. Like influences, I worked with Corva for a little bit, but like Will Corva's stuff, not necessarily what Corva is now, but like what Will Corva was teaching was fantastic. Rennie Morningstein, obviously at Manchester United. But what it comes down to with me is showing players that they can be this little bit extra and that it's going to make a bigger impact on the field. And right now, it's like where we are technological wise, it's so much more seamless to do it now because we use Instat. They code all the games and everything, and I can go in and just, before I went down to Mel in Florida, I went on Instat, I got her last 10 games, and I already had, a feeling of what I wanted to work with her on. And the fantastic thing with video is that you can show why, right? Because, a lot of these players, why would they listen to me, right? Just because I see something doesn't make it right. But I can show video and see all this space behind you. You're not exploiting it because you keep receiving it away from, your touch away from that space. Little things like that. And I really enjoy looking into the details. Even when I watch football now, like my roommate, he's from Mexico City. He used to play for Pumas, so like Liga MX at high level. And he's like, you don't even watch the games anymore. You just watch players' technical stuff. And it's been like that for a long time. Someone will be like, oh, did you see that goal? I was like, yeah, but did you see the 3 touches before it? And they're like, no. I'm like, watch that. And it's like, just little things, right? You guys know, you have these little obsessions, and my obsessions are the players that I work with, just getting them to that, pushing them to that next level. And that's not necessarily your Ali Rileys, your Alex Morgans, your Rachel Dailies. That's, I've got players who you may never hear about, right? And they're going to go to college and play, maybe done after that. But, they're often the biggest success stories at the same time. I've got players who, they were awful when they came to me. And all I ever ask for from players, what I call elite and what other people use the word for is different. I probably use it in the wrong way, but it's my way, right? I believe that an elite soccer player is their mindset, right? It's not necessarily the level they're playing at, it's their mindset of continued growth, right? To me, that's an elite mindset. So if I've got a 12-year-old who's been playing rec soccer all their life, and they come to me and they're like, Dave, I want to play club soccer, and they may top out at club soccer. They may not even want to go play college, right? But those are the ones I'm really proud of, because when they came to me, they couldn't even strike a ball in any way, shape, or form. And when they leave me, they're okay. They're confident on the ball. They're a decent player. They'll be playing, adult pickup for the rest of their life, and they're not going to be that really bad player on adult pickup. They're going to be that player that they give the ball to, right? So I didn't really go into your question. I went another way, but that's cool as well.
Mate, it works. It's just as appropriate and just as impactful, because again, I think it is so important, and I'm going to build on that with what you said about the mindset element. And I obviously want to tie it back, and by no means do I want Rachel to be the center of the conversation, but I think there's a great example, and one that you were very proud of, and you've obviously shared quite a few times in terms of preparation in your personal or individual and very bespoke training that you do. Obviously, it's not just get a ball and move it around cones. Like, you're obviously tapering stuff to be functionally specific for the needs of the player. And one of Rachel's goals is literally carbon copy, right, from the patterns that you'd worked out in a training plan to how it was then executed in a real game. So just talk us through a little bit of the value of doing that, of understanding that, you know, yes, working hard is super important, but working smart and maximizing the time that you have, so it's a benefit to the position that you play and how it can impact games, if you could.
Yeah, well, you know, all the stuff we put out on social media, I always put in the description, like, make it your own, right? This is the layout, make it your own. Now, with Rach, I think that video really hit home because we'd worked on that movement all summer. And I think the reason I was most proud of that video, right, is one of the comments it received. We get a lot of trolls. I don't know why. I think it's just the internet, right? Someone put underneath, yeah, that was good, but let's see her do it on a weak foot. And I'm like, boom, that was a weak foot. But with little things like that, right? So what I do with players, let me grab my iPad. So what I do with players like that is I'll go through their footage and I'll sit down with them and be like, right, Rach, what do you want to work on in this off season, right? So whether that is with her that year, it was cutting in on her left and 1v1s in different scenarios. So we would basically draw that out, right? So we'd start off I'd go on Instat and I'd get all of her footage. And the great thing about, like, again, tech these days is that they'll tell you exactly on the goal where the shot was going, which to me is super, super important because we track that in our sessions as well, right? So we track where all the shots are going. That's an example of it, right? So where the shots are coming from, where, you know, what foot they were using, where the goals were scored, where most of the misses were. And this is actually mouse, which is on my other iPad. But so with this one, for this example, like, you can see, like, we switch, we've got different zones inside the box. We could do 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is different than everyone else. But you can see, like, all the goals come in 3, and most of the shots come in 3. And where's the other thing? There we go. So when they're coming in 3, like, why wouldn't we just work on 3, right? Because that's where, and then I can study all of the movements. So with Rach for that off season, it was looking at a heat map on the actual shots, right? Where are they going? Where are her chances coming from? And what I'll say about Rachel and how she is different than most of the other forwards that we work with, her range that she takes shots from, it's incredibly diverse. So as a trainer, it's kind of annoying because there isn't, like, 2 things that you're like, oh, we're going to do this. Because she's so diverse, she can take shots from anywhere. But, you know, with her, what we still need to work on is inside that zone 3, just calming it down. But she's weird because outside the 18, it's ridiculous. Like, her percentage is incredibly high, and then inside the 18, not as good. So that's what we still need to work on with Rach. And then what I do is after studying footage, and the good thing about it is that any kid can do this, right? You don't need Instat, you don't need an iPad to do it. You just need footage from a game. And then what the US do now, and it could just be the 17s, but they are having their players, for their IDP, their individual development plan, they're having them create a low light video and a highlight video. So for me, that's fantastic because my players from them, they just send me their low lights, right? And I believe that was Tracy Kevins again who started that. I might be wrong. So we'll go in and look at Rachel's low lights, and then I'll develop sessions around those low lights. So, you know, what you see on social media from us, just ideas for everybody else to use. And, you know, they're not just mindless movements. Some of the footwork is just there to warm people up. All right, it's there to warm you up. That is also usually the social part of the session. So we're getting a load of touches in every, especially if it's a small group. But then we'll get into it. And a session with Rach, who is a 9 for Houston, will be very, very different than a session with Alex, who is a 9 for the US and Orlando. And but I always try to get that across, because football isn't a cookie cutter process. Every player needs to work on different things, and the more hyper targeted they can get, the better. And especially in and around the box for an attacking player, Rachel's movement is superb. So it's basically reinforcing those movements, how she can make those movements more productive for her teammates around her, right? Because there's no point being phenomenal movements if you're surrounded by players who can't read the game. That is in no way, shape, or form aimed at any of her teammates. I'm just saying that, right? But it's difficult, right? So
For sure.
we just get hyper specific with it. Yeah, and I'll tell you why we use the iPad, and I'll show you my session on my session planner. It's funny because every time I put this on Instagram, everyone's like, "What is that session planner?" And it's like, I just did this. I built that out as a PDF because I still like to write my sessions. And here, okay, this is Rach and Christy Mewett. So Christy can play 6, 8, 10. She played everywhere, but so here we've got 2 players together. So how can both players get benefit from the session, right? So I've written in all of these drills, both players' needs are met, right? And because a lot of it is shooting as well. Every player loves a bit of shooting. So even if you've got a right back in, you let them have a little bit of a go at the finishing.
Yeah, and Mark, I'm gonna let you go in 1 second, because I just want to, again, the link for, and what I hope players specifically on the line that you've heard from David there is again, what we're sharing is, yes, it's top level, elite level insight for how some of the best players in the world get better, but as David said, in your club programs, hopefully your coaches have individual development plans with you. Hopefully you have the opportunity to have games captured, and with a little bit of time, you can speak to your coaches and just find some little bits of insight and ideas for a couple of actions that you can go away and work on, that will help you be able to come back and find that extra percent. Mark, I know you have a question. I also want to ask you a question on this, Willow. Is in the elite environment now and the professional programs, and when you were growing up at Manchester United, was there time for this in those academies? Like, were there specific individual sessions built in to meet the needs of players, and how did it differ between obviously positions and things like that?
That's a good question, and I love the insight and the depth that, David, you go into in terms of really understanding the dynamics of a player, how they think, where they drift into, depending on the position, leading with their strengths in essence, and then refining and developing that to maximize that. I think it's fantastic work that you do. And I've got a question to put to you as well. When you look at the dynamics of a league, like Premier League or La Liga, whatever league it might be in the world, I have access to Instat occasionally, and some of the stats come back with 60% of goals in the Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga are scored. If you think of a channel just down the side of the 18-yard box, a pass played into the center of the 6-yard box, and 84% of that 60% are scored first time. Reason being, or the reasons behind that, is the most dangerous place in the box is a space between the goalkeeper and the last line of defense. So when you've got a player who has certain preferences and drifts into spaces where they've had a lot of left foot shots, right foot shots, different techniques, had success there, depending on the dynamic of the actual overall game and the things you're not in control of, which is where the ball goes most frequently sometimes because of other players' choices, is there an evolution to that development where you can add even more layers to a game by helping them understand that if you tweak this, if you understand this piece, that you can enhance your performance even further?
It's funny that you bring those stats up, because for Mal, I was very much on the same thing. So I sent this to her before we started, and that's your locations of your goals scored, right? And this was, I think this was the Premier League. But I also think a lot of the leagues end up being very similar, right? With that stat of a player like Mal being slipped through, right? That's where they get their opportunities from. And what I think the evolution of it all is me being on the same wavelength as the player and able to send them not only like stats, but actual videos of when in the game they could have made that run, right? And it ends up being an absolutely worthless play, just gets kicked out or whatever it is, because you didn't see that opportunity to run. And that's like, we're very video centric now because of that. So I wish I had the video here, but before we went to Florida, I sent Mal like a 2-minute video of like, this is why I want to work on what I've sent you, right? And I feel like obviously not everybody can have that amount of detail, right? But if you can, it's so much more powerful because number one, player understanding, but we're not just going out to do drills, because one of my pet peeves is training to train, right? You see it all the time. People need to train to improve, right? That you train for confidence. And so with me, the evolution is more video, but getting on the same wavelength so the players know exactly why we're doing it. And then they translate it into their team's practice. And then eventually they translate it into their team's games. Because what will happen with us is, especially like with a player like Rachel, if I can show her, like, listen, if whoever the centre mid is there, if you can get them to slip you in early, your positioning is right for it. So you've got to go and show them, and then the player takes it. If you're like, listen, do this, 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 and obviously this is in off season. I don't want to step on coaches' toes, but that's what we've seen working, especially like with small group stuff with players from the same team. Communication using, I want to say, video evidence, really. But that's the way that we're going with it. But the fact that you brought up those stats is funny, because that's exactly what I used with Mal, because Mal is known for her speed, and I think we've done her a disservice, right, by bringing her into that category, because she's a really, really good footballer, and somewhere that's been lost. But I think because they were so heavily focused on her 1v1s, right, and that's slowing her down. And my whole thing with Mallory is like, why aren't we checking our space behind us? Because that first touch you take away from that space is no longer there. And then you can send video, which is what I did. Like, if you like just let that ball go by you, you arch your body like you're gonna do what you always do, which is receive and take the ball away. If you arch your body like that and you let that ball go, you've got this kid over 10 yards. And then all of a sudden, we're through into the box, and then she would be the one slipping that ball in, right? I talk a lot, guys, I'm sorry.
No, I love that explanation. Look, great technique without the awareness of time and space, as you've just really aptly pointed out. It doesn't transition into being a skill, right? It remains technique. And I think you found a really unique place. It takes me back to your question, Tom, about were we given, like in an old version of an IDP, were we expected to look at video and then have the visual, so when we go out onto the practice field, we have that context in our mind, so now we can start to build it up. But also the key bit you do, David, is really drill down on the technique. So we live in a game where everybody wants a black and white. Well, it's not enough of this, or it's too much of that, or we should do more technique work, or we should do more tactical work. The reality is you've got to refine and develop every single layer if you want to step onto any first team field at any level, or even at a high level college. So it's just fascinating to hear how you work with your players, and it's probably a bit of it is a replica of what in the elite level professional game I've experienced is done there, and it's, you know, credit to you for transferring that.
If you look at your past, right, you played at a very, very good level, you probably did all of this without even knowing it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas now, now players have got Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. They've got so many opportunities to take their focus away from things that matter, right? Whereas when you were playing, football was the only thing that mattered, right? So all we've got to do is come up with solutions to make it easier for players. Instead of bantering on, like, oh, you know, TikTok's awful, it's cancerous to kids. Why? When we can help them with it, they can have both. You can do both. It's fine. Like, you know, it makes me laugh when coaches bleat on about it. Oh, they spend so many hours on social media. That's fine if they've gone out and worked that day, because it is no longer the world it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You know, like we've just got a company TikTok, and you know, if we can learn from social media, it's about making things addictive, right? If we can make bettering yourself as a player addictive, then we're on the right track, and we've got to make it as easy as possible for players to do that, right? So, you know, us all growing up, we were playing football all the time. Like, if Arsenal lost, my week was ruined. Luckily, they were good when I was a kid. My brother's a Tottenham fan, so if they lost at Tottenham, game over. But we don't have that here, right? We don't have that passion, right? It's just fact. Like, I've never seen anyone cry over an MLS team losing. You know, I'm a fan. I'll watch it, but we don't have that. So what we're going to do is provide the solution for it.
David, I think that point that you've just brought up it lends itself again nicely to something we were beginning to discuss before we hit record, which is trying to make, like you said, learning addictive, trying to make it a passion, trying to reestablish and reignite a love affair between the person and the ball, and not needing everything to be team-based, not needing everything to necessarily be in a game, and just enjoying the challenge of what does football give you? Well, if you're juggling and you can go from 100 to 200 juggles or 10 to 100 juggles, it gives you that immediate sense of immediate gratification, right? If I can bend a ball into the top corner of my right foot and I can't do it quite now off my left, but then I keep practicing and I can, and that for me is a sense of accomplishment that this game can offer us that very few other things in life can. Obviously, we've spoken about individual training and technical training being part of a broader wheel of what it's going to take to make up an elite footballer or any footballer. But if you could, for the benefit of the boys and girls listening, like, what would your recommendation be to the type of time that you expect to see people spend on this side of their game in a usual circumstance, which obviously isn't, that we're unable to.
Usual circumstances, no corona. We usually say between 30 minutes and an hour a day. However, it is very load centric, and we've got an app called My Soccer Training, and I was adamant about having a calendar in there where, because it's gamified, so there's like streaks and everything, and the important part of it was that a player doesn't lose their streak of training if they don't do individual training that day. Say they only do their team training. So we built a button in there that you can put team training, so you don't lose your streak, because we're very heavy on not overloading yourself and not getting into the state of training to keep a streak going or training just to train again. Like, I didn't train today. It's fine if you're feeling heavy, if your legs are heavy, you know you've got team practice that day. Do not do anything extra. Right? Speak to your coach about managing your loads. A coach yesterday on Twitter, Victoria Boardman, she tweeted her individual periodization for her team. If you guys can find it on Twitter, find it. It's fantastic, right? Yeah. So she put everything out there. Now that's for Corona, but during the season, you know, I know she's heavy into periodization as well. But the thing with what we're seeing with younger coaches now is that they're understanding that this individual part of it is important, and they're building that into their periodization. Whereas if you look at the Houston Dash, what was that coach? Vera Paul banned anything extra. She came in, she was the South African coach, she came into the Houston Dash, and you immediately lose a locker room, right? You're not allowed to do any extra, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to, because she didn't understand the American load system, right? Now, I say that like with respect as well, she's a good coach, but when you're figuring out your periodization, it has to be individually based, again, because not every player is the same, right? So if I've got a player like Rachel, who I know that if I can give her 25 minutes extra shooting, right? If I can work that into a load, I know the psychological effect completely outweighs the physical effect. She needs to know she's doing extra. She needs to know she's got her reps in. Now, we can load that in a way that it's beneficial for everyone. And we're finding with younger coaches that they're starting to build that in now, and they're starting to understand it more. Because it's like what Will said earlier, it's not black and white, right? It's not, this isn't Lego. You can't just plug it in and it works, right? Every player is different. You know, some players, if they're at a pro level, they don't do extra, but psychologically they don't have to. Like Alex has to do more, right? And the way that she feels about going into a camp with the US, when she's been working for an hour and a half every day for 2 weeks before, she's more confident. That's not rocket science.
And I think that comes down, obviously we started the conversation with the phrase champions do more, and we've spoken about over these calls about teams and earning the right to expect success. But even in this situation, you know, putting in the work so that you know that you can grab an opportunity with both hands and know that you've prepared in the best possible way for it, right? Not to exhaustion, not to that. But talk to me, obviously you mentioned the elite men, like an elite player to you is all about mindset and mentality. Yeah. So speak to Dave, because I think, at least for me, look, over the years, I think there's been some really powerful and motivational, inspiring quotes, phrases, videos, but that mentality, you know, the mentality that you hold so dear and that the players kind of demonstrate, talk a little bit broader, if you could, to the people listening who, again, maybe haven't come across it, about why it's so important to you and what it really means.
Because let me tell you, guys, right now, we will never, touch wood, have this time again, right? We'll never have 3, 4, 5 months to only work on yourself. We'll never have that again. We've started to call it separation season, because you really have an opportunity to separate yourself. And I'm not talking about your teammates. I'm talking about separating yourself from where you are now to where you want to be. So if you actually want to become that super confident player who loves it, they love it when someone pings a ball at you from 10 yards away at your kneecap. You love it because you've worked on that for 5 months, right? You can deal with any sort of trashy pass, but it's all about that elite mindset of, I'm going to do it. You shouldn't need inspirational quotes and inspirational videos, right? You shouldn't, oh, that's just spiked my endorphins. Brilliant, I'll go out and do something. You shouldn't need that, right? What you need is a plan. Every top level player that I've worked with, and I said to the guys earlier about elite is a mindset, not necessarily level. They're hyper organized, right? They know what they're doing day in, day out. Pretty much every minute of their day is accounted for. And that is the mindset. So a great example of that was Alex with ESPN and Instagram, right? Like they're both filming our session because she didn't have time to do that separately that day. And you know, I've got players now who I'm training who are texting me every day telling me what they're doing. Dave, I've got school from whatever it is, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Zoom. Then I'm going to go into the yard and do this. Do you think I can add anything to it? Then I've got my team Zoom with whatever club it is, and then I'm having TV time, then I'm having downtime. Those players who are organising their success are the ones who are going to go on to really, really be successful, not just on the field as well, but they're going to be the ones who are successful in life because they know what it takes. And it doesn't take a huge amount of action to get organised. And once you're there, then you stay organised. But I think people are kind of fearful of it because what if I fail? What if I'm organised and I fail, right? Because fear hasn't evolved, right? Fear as it is now isn't real. But now we're scared of failure. You know, what fear is for is it's our innate ability to sense danger, right? When we were cavemen, that fear was alerting us that this saber-toothed tiger is about to rip my face off. We don't have saber-toothed tigers anymore. We have, oh my gosh, my coach might shout at me. That doesn't matter, right? And the fear of failure is also there. It doesn't matter because players who have got that elite mindset, they embrace failure, right? And they see it as a lesson. And it's hard sometimes, right? You completely fail. Like you guys know, like in business, like sometimes things don't go the right way and you get down for a few minutes and you're like, you know what, suck it up, it's okay. And we've got a few sayings: rise and grind, champions do more, own your development. Own your development is basically encompassing everything about what we're talking about, right? So don't rely on anybody else. Right, that's my first takeaway from everything. Don't rely on anybody else. Rely on yourself for everything. We did a talk in 2014 called Creating a Self-Reliant Soccer Player. And it's all about giving the players the right tools to not rely. Right, this is the thing. When they're 18, I want them to be able to look into the mirror and be like, I'm going to the college that I wanted to go to. I deserve that. And I want them to look in the mirror and be like, don't really want to go to this college. It was on me. I didn't do the work, right? So we take every excuse away from players. And this is the time, and we're going to see it now. Like, what I'm really, really hoping is after this is all over, I'm going to be getting texts from coaches going, this kid is insane now. And, you know, technique-wise and skills-wise, are kind of secondary. It's here. Because if you've practiced something every day for 3 months, just like that video of Rach. Like Rach is not left-footed, right? She goes down, she does Casey Short, who is a world-class defender, cuts inside and beats Alyssa Nair, who's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, with her left foot. And you know, she didn't just wake up like that. She has bad days when she doesn't want to train. She has those days, but she does it anyway because she knows that there's a goal at the end. And that's what I want players to take away from this is now is the time, right? You are never going to have this amount of time again. Stop watching Tiger King. Go outside and work and then watch Tiger King because it's very good. But as long as you're doing like 45 minutes, half an hour, just on your own thing every day.
Can I add to that, Dave? I think a lot of human beings confuse simple and easy. You've got a saying on your website, discipline plus commitment equals success. And when you think about what discipline encompasses, what commitment encompasses, making your bed, being polite, being respectful, remembering to be polite and respectful all the time, you know, doing simple things like cleaning your soccer cleats or preparing your bag before you come to soccer practice. They are simple things, but if you're not in the right frame of mind and they're not part of your value system, they're extremely hard. So I get a lot of feedback. I know, like, you know, discipline's this and commitment's that and resilience is this, and yet the simple concepts, but they're extremely hard to do every single day of your life. And it takes time, it takes work, it takes understanding by working with people like yourselves, sports psychologists, people who have knowledge and experience in the game to really build those layers in. So for players on the line, don't have the misconception that simple means easy. Simple can be extremely, extremely hard, and you have an opportunity to change some of your habits from when you get off this call. Yeah, so I just wanted to make that point, David.
like 100% as well. Like you're so bang on, right? And it's sometimes it's taking a look at yourself from 30,000 feet and just assessing, right? Like what do I do every day that brings absolutely no value into my life? And maybe cutting that in half, right? Like, do you think I like running? I hate it. You know, do you think I like going on a spin bike? Despise it. Do I do it every day? Every day. Every day I do it. And I do it because my end game is to stay fit and stay mentally sharp, right? Like, so bad things that I do, lately it's TikTok because I'm trying to understand the platform. But, you know, it was funny because 2 days ago I was like, right, what I'm going to do is cut a bunch of footage, post it at 9 a.m. every day, and then just leave it alone. Right, so I recognise that was becoming a bad habit and to change it. But you're right, easy and simple, very, very, very different things.
And I think, Dave, one of the other phrases that you use a lot that you haven't spoken about there is don't wish for it, work for it, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that right now is also what's going to sum up. And I love separation season, and we've used a lot. Success leaves clues. Like there's a trail. There's people who get to where they want to get to. There's reasons why they get to achieve it. And obviously the great Mia Hamm quote on the vision of a champion is somebody bent over, dripping in sweat when no one else is watching. Like there's a reason why people get to achieve what they do in the game. And honestly, throughout this conversation, it's been a wonderful insight into the life that you obviously get to lead on a day-to-day basis, and that life that you share with top professionals who obviously people on the line, many of you have got pictures on your bedroom walls of, and you know, aspire to be like. And again, I really thank you for lifting the lid and being honest about what it takes, because sometimes we hide away from that, and I think we do a disservice to the young players of really understanding, you know, how people go around achieving their goals.
I feel like we call it talent now, don't we? Right, it's talent. And when you, and this goes right through youth soccer, if there's a kid who's 9 and they're really good, it's like they're talented, aren't they? They're not talented, right? They're not talented. They've just worked they've worked harder than your kid, right? At 24, you know, a player is banging goals and they're a natural born goal scorer. No, they're not. You've just stolen thousands and thousands of extra work away from them. Why are we using that word talent as a crutch? Right? Talent is a word that is a crutch for lazy people, right? Because yes, innate talent does exist, right? But it doesn't. You can't. If your dad was a footballer, doesn't mean you can go out and be Messi, does it? You've still got to work. Like, you know, you think Jordi Cruyff didn't work? Jordi Cruyff played at Manchester United. Of course he worked. He worked every day. Probably had to, because Johan would have told him off.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And again, hopefully, if nothing else, there's a bit of a fire lit with some of the people that are listening. And just again, if this can be the source of inspiration, then you can find it yourself. It's obviously great. But Dave, I found myself, honestly, the last couple of weeks, the hour just flies, and it's an hour that's gone already. I do want to be sensitive and appreciative of your time. So I think from our end of stuff, you know, we've been able to dive in a lot to what we wanted to talk about and the picture we wanted to paint for the young players. People that are on the line, if you have a question that you don't think David has answered, or that you'd be really intrigued to know, please feel free just to jump in, so that we can start to kind of wind this down. And honestly, please don't be shy. It's not every day that you get to speak to David and somebody who's had the experiences that he has. So if there is anything, please feel free to type it in the message function at the top of your screen. If not, Willow, I don't know if you've got anything that you want to add to.
No, been a fascinating insight, and you know, I think it's a very unique product, very unique space you've created for yourself. I'm not sure people are doing what you're doing to the level you're doing it, and it does take me back to some of the best environments I've worked in. So one, keep up the good work, And two, thank you for taking the time to share that with us.
I appreciate it,
Yeah.
guys. This has actually been really good.
David, if you could, obviously we know there's an army of people on here who follow you already, but where can they learn more and talk to us about, the app as well as,
Yeah, so if I was there, the first thing I'd do is go to beastmodesoccer.com/IDP, and you can just download our free IDP form. There's nothing to buy. You just download the form and you can start there, filling out that IDP and figuring out what you need to work on. Obviously, we've got an app. It's called My Soccer Training. It's mysoccertraining.com. It's less than $20 a month. It's got it's over 40 sessions in there, but it's built around the IDP, where it's built around the player still putting sessions into their calendar. The sessions are all done for them, but they still have to take the action of watching, a little bit of the session, putting it in the calendar and setting themselves up. And again, just because soccer is not a cookie cutter thing, everybody needs to work on different aspects. But the app is awesome. I'm happy with it. Best app in the world.
And then obviously Instagram and Twitter and where else?
Yeah, Instagram, TikTok.
There we go. TikTok is the new one.
Yeah, that's all it is. We're at Beastmode Soccer and everything. TikTok were really good to us. Someone else had their handle and they ripped it off, and it was fantastic. Yeah.
Fantastic. From us, there's a couple of questions that have come directly to the organisers here. John, I just want to touch upon yours. Obviously, we mentioned that the work that David does is part of a broader process. So you obviously referenced the play, practice, play, and that's team centric. So the technical training that David does is supplemental, and it's kind of more obviously individually oriented. And then Hassam, David, this is a difficult question, I guess, but how do I get to motivate my son to go out to work on his game individually? He's willing to go out to work with me, but reluctant to go by himself.
What we did with the app is gamify it so that every action is basically rewarded with points. And I'm not saying everybody has to get the app, but the first thing I'll do with your son is set little goals, little targets. Because if you just tell him, right, go out and train on your own, then what's he going to do? So I would download that IDP form, fill it out with him, and then you can map it out. And if he's still not doing it, maybe he doesn't want to play football. Honestly, maybe he's going to top out at the club level, which is fine, right?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliantly put answer. I think it's up to them at the end of the day, right? We can't as parents or coaches do it for them, and it's sometimes what we speak about as a coach or as a trainer. You can't want something for somebody more than they want it for themselves, because they're just not going to be able to fulfill goals. But okay, so David, what we'll do is we'll wrap it there. So a really big thank you for your time and for your insight. It was a wonderful conversation, and we're greatly appreciative of you sharing your early Thursday with us. For everybody else on the East Coast, obviously your later portion of the afternoon. For us, we've got a former teammate of Mr. Wilson's tomorrow, Quinton Fortune, who's currently the under-23 head coach of Manchester United, joining us. So again, some more incredible insight coming for what it takes to make it in this game. We hope that you can join us there, and again, please go and check out all the great work that Dave is doing. And thank you for choosing Beyond Pulse as your afternoon entertainment. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.